Let's see. Here's Kevin Gall. He's Baylor. He's one of the Baylor's director of athletics in that underneath the Mac Rhodes. In 18 months since the Big 12 Conference was disrupted, achievements by remaining and incoming members include 2 classic Big 12 championship games, no doubt, 3 New Year's Six Bowl victories. New Year's Six Bowl victories. 2 college football playoff appearances, a college football playoff W, and a title game spot, and what will be 3 top 5 finishes. That's from Kevin Gall. He sent that to me. He also put that up on Twitter. And if you think about it, all of that's good. TCU in the championship game, I'm sure Baylor fans, some of you are going, oh, my God. But is it good for the Big 12 Conference that TCU is where they are? And the answer is absolutely correct. It is.
I think it's good that you're saying good things about the Big 12 Conference and not mentioning the teams that are leaving 2 years in a row at the end of the season. Taking the 30,000-foot view of it, yeah, it's great. Now, if you're in an individual fan base, you kind of have to take the good with the bad. I mean, if your biggest rivals in the national championship game, the only thing that mildly salves the burn is it's good for the conference overall in an ever-changing world of college athletics. But, still, you're probably rooting for Georgia to win that game because you don't want, the people 90 miles away to feel 1 ounce of joy. But I think that, overall it's been great. And, again, not having Texas and Oklahoma as a part of that is really, really good news. I mean, and I'm not knocking on Texas and Oklahoma. It's just for the Big 12, they needed to separate their identity from them, and to do it before they left the league is perfect.
They also needed a win because they were 1-6 in bowl games until TCU took care of their business against Michigan. I'm not a big bowl game record, but boy, other than Texas Tech, the Big 12 needed somebody to show up.
And outside of the playoff, I mean, that's kind of saved the bowl watching for me, quite frankly. I don't know what it is about just this year in general. I love bowl games and love watching them, but, watching this year, especially when we started getting to, the second week of it, I was like, is this really all there is to it? I'm waiting for the big games with some stuff riding on the line, and so we ultimately got to that point. But, yeah, I mean, they were just kind of games, and they were just sort of happening, and that's not because the Big 12 was not doing well. That doesn't make one bit of difference to me, really, in most of these contests. But, I think that they needed a shot of, some feel-good and some positive news because they were struggling to find wins, and TCU and Texas Tech delivered that, and TCU in a huge fashion by being able to win a playoff game. I mean, look, Texas hasn't been to the playoff before. TCU now has. Oklahoma's been. They've never won one. TCU has. So, for all the talk about what they do in terms of carrying the conference, financially or TV ratings or what have you, there's still going to be some of that no matter what TCU does or doesn't do next week. But they sure shot some holes through, some of the arguments or some of the claims by, fans of those two departing schools. And look, they'll go off and they'll be happy. But, yeah, I think if you're a Big 12 fan just in general, no, if you're a Baylor fan, do you want to see TCU win a national title in football? No, of course you don't. TCU wouldn't root for that for Baylor, even if the conference was on the line as well, and I wouldn't expect them to. If you're some of these other schools, maybe it doesn't hit as hard. Like if you're Iowa State, does it really matter that TCU wins a national title? Does that really affect you? Not really. I mean, it doesn't. It's not going to hurt your recruiting or anything like that. So I think it depends on what school you're talking about. If you're Tech, you don't want TCU winning a title because that cuts into probably some of the guys you'd love to recruit and gives them a huge advantage over you and what you're trying to do. But having said that, I think if they do win it, yeah, it'll be tough for a couple of schools that now have to recruit against that. But ultimately, it'll be for the benefit of everyone. And, my question would just be, how hot does TCU get and how hot do they stay? And, what does that do for, potential movement in the future? Like, do they get so hot being in that DFW? I brought this up before we went to break. I brought up the fact that, realignment is quieted down, but it's not totally over. Now, Kevin Warren's in the news about, potentially an NFL job, which would be very interesting and might shake up the future plans. But, when everybody was throwing out their charts and all of that about who could jump from here to here, who could be the next, I brought up TCU a lot. I mean, they're in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I understand the size isn't what you think of with Ohio State, and the TV ratings aren't necessarily week in and week out of what you think of when you think of Michigan or even Texas for that matter. But, I mean, you talk about a hot brand in a hot town, and doing a lot that nobody ever expected. I mean, that's TCU right now, so they're taking full advantage, and rightfully so. And you just hope when all is said and done, the Big 12 can maximize that as best they can. And TCU is one of those teams that's not only leading the charge right now, but is leading the charge in the future for you as well.
So they will play Georgia a week from tonight to win the national championship or not. We'll see what happens in that game. And those two games on Saturday were like two heavyweights just throwing haymakers. Michigan had to get off the canvas quite a bit. And then they did, and then TCU would land a big punch. And then, of course, Ohio State had the big lead, or in control of the game for the most part against Georgia, up, 14 a couple of times, 10 a couple of times. And then here comes Georgia and what they did. Now, USC, again, is leading to